Whoa, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Would had this video up earlier. Obviously, it was working, and wanted to give my full opinion on it, my detailed opinion on it. Obviously, a big story today broke with the New York Giants. Took the last couple of days off because it's the bye week. Wasn't a whole lot to talk about. I'll be live on the channel all week. I think Mike's going to be on the channel. We'll figure out a day, hopefully Friday, Wednesday. It's my birthday this week, so we'll see what how I can fit it around my schedule. But gonna have Mike on the channel, gonna have Bad Dog on the channel. We took a week off because it was the bye week. Not a whole lot to talk about. But now the second half of the season starts, and as a Giants fan, you should be revved up, right? And obviously, we're gonna get into the bad news of the day, but you should be revved up. The team's 6-2. You're looking at two very winnable games coming up with the Texans and the Lions. We have an opportunity to get to 8-2 before divisional play. And if you look around the NFC conference right now, 9 wins probably stands a very good chance to make the playoffs. I mean, right now, the 8 seed, which is the last team trying to creep into the playoff picture, is 4-5. For them to get to 9-8, they got to go 5-3. That's the Atlanta Falcons. That's Washington. And I don't know their remaining schedule, but it's probably going to be challenging for those teams to go 5-3. So you have to figure with tiebreakers at the very least, 9-8 is probably going to get you into this year's NFC playoffs. So as a Giants fan, you say to yourself, wow, even if this team were to go 3-6, there's probably a very good chance we could go to the playoffs. If we go 4-5 and finish 10-7, we're absolutely making the playoffs. And then you look at some opportunities. The next two games, the Colts, we saw the way that they looked with their backup quarterback, and now they hired a guy from ESPN, obviously a great former player, but no coaching experience to be their head coach for the rest of the season. Leads me to believe it's very possible they're trying to lose football games down the stretch. Not to mention you got 2 games against Washington. I know they've looked good, but you figure there's a good chance to get a split there. So there are a lot of winnable opportunities for this team, and I think there is a big reason to be very excited that this team could potentially be playing playoff football this year. But then obviously we get hit with the huge news that the New York Giants, even on the bye week, can't find a way to avoid the injury bug. Of course, the Giants have been the most injured team in football since 2010. And in another crazy way of events, the New York Giants find a way to have an injury. And I go down a laundry list of, injuries, whether it be the firework incident with Jason Pierre-Paul, the Plaxico Burress incident. We don't need to go over that. But the Giants, over the course of history, have found very creative ways to sustain injuries. And in this circumstance, you cannot blame the turf, but just a very unfortunate course of events. And listen, Twitter is a very divided place. I'll tell you that. Just the world in general is a very divided place. But obviously, I'm very active on Twitter. Being that I'm a New York Giants content creator, I try to talk with the fans and give my opinion on things. And Twitter is a very combative place, just like anything else. People are set in their ways. And I'm taking a break from Twitter. I'm telling you this right now because it was dirty today on Twitter regarding Xavier Mckinney, both for people that were very pro-player and people that were very against the actions. And I think there's a middle ground. I think you could look at it and say to yourself, this was not a wise decision, but at the same time, not go to the lengths of some fans did on Twitter to say he should be revoked of his captain's badge. They should cut him. They should get rid of the contract. No. I'll get into all of it throughout the video, but no, I think people went too far on both sides in terms of the defense as well, because I don't think Xavier Mckinney is completely innocent in this circumstance, and I think McKinney and Dable would tell you that themselves, but I'll get into it. I'll share my full opinion on it. Also, wanted to touch on the Odell Beckham thing, because I think this has been a story that's gaining more and more and more traction. So I just wanted to talk about it, give my full opinion on it. Some of the things that have been coming out. Beckham came out with a quote, I think as recently as yesterday, talking about that he may want a multi-year commitment from whichever team, signs him. And he did mention the New York Giants by name in it. I think there was 3 other teams. We'll get into all the specifics. And, of course, we are well aware that Joe Schoen has not shied away from it. He has said that he's been in contact with Odell Beckham's representatives. He has said that he'd be interested in potentially bringing him in here. Do I think it's likely? No. I still am not going to go as far to say that I think it's likely Odell Beckham's coming back here. But it's more of a possibility than I thought a month ago. I'll say that. It's at least a small possibility. He has come out and expressed interest, and the New York Giants have expressed interest in him. And obviously, there's a link there. The New York Giants need wide receiver out more so than any other team in football. It would be a great story in terms of the PR. And Odell Beckham would instantly, if he's near himself, be the most credible wide receiver on this football team. So I got to at least talk about it and talk about the possibility and the likelihood that this could come to fruition. And Odell Beckham could be back in a New York Giants uniform before the end of the year or in the near future. So we'll talk about that, pull up some of the quotes. But obviously, we're going to start with McKinney. I also want to touch on what I think the New York Giants are going to have to do in his absence. Who will more than likely see an increase in playing time? Who will more than likely take over his role? But before I pull up the quotes, this is bad. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is a bad injury. And listen, I know the mindset for the Giants this year, and my mindset has been next man up. The Giants have suffered a lot of injuries. They found ways to overcome them, and they're going to have to find a way to overcome this too. I mean, at the end of the day, when Aaron Robinson went down, I didn't even know who we were going to play at cornerback to. We found a way to overcome it. Fabi Moro's played fantastic. There's been several other instances this year where we found a way to overcome things, but this is not going to be easy to overcome. I'm not going to downplay that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Xavier Mckinney is, if he's not the most important player on our defense, he's the second or third most important. He has the mic, which is not very common for a safety, but he's essentially the middle linebacker in this defense from that standpoint. And he's a guy that's incredibly versatile. He's a guy that the New York Giants look to use in several different ways, and you're not going to be able to just replace him with one player. You're just not. As good as Julian Love is, and I think he's going to be the guy now with more added responsibility in terms of what they ask him to do in this defense. Obviously, you probably, look for a guy like Dane Belton to get an increase in terms of his usage. Maybe a guy like Pinnock, who we picked up in the offseason from the New York Jets, gets more playing time. I think Landon Collins will probably stay in what his design role was when the New York Giants brought him in. We all know he's not the best in terms of coverage. He's probably still going to stay in that linebacker role, but maybe even he sees, an increase in playing time if he gets the opportunity. But the New York Giants are going to have to find a way to overcome it, whether it be an individual, whether it be, they run a different type of defense in the meantime to get over this. Because Xavier McKinney being out certainly is going to be an obstacle for Wink Martindale. The good news is over the next 2 weeks, at least, we're not going up against world beaters. But then you get into the tough part of the schedule with the division and everything else, and we're going to get into the timetable for McKinney and how long he may be out. But first, let's pull up the tweet that he posted today on Twitter, and then I'll give my full opinion on it once we go over all the details of it. During our bye week, I went away to Cabo. Well, there, I joined a group of a guided sightseeing tour on ATVs. Unfortunately, I had an accident and injured my hand. The injury will keep me sidelined for a few weeks. I will do everything I can to get back as quickly as possible so I can contribute to what we're building here in New York. So, all right, first, let's give him credit for at least coming out saying, I'm gonna do whatever I can. He got ahead of this before the press got word of it, and he manned up. And he did, knowing, and we're gonna get into exactly what we know now, but knowing in his contract that if he gets hurt on an ATV, the New York Giants have every right to revoke the money in the contract to him in terms of the guaranteed salary. Now, I don't think the New York Giants are going to do that, but give McKinney credit for that. He came out and he said, it happened in ATV. I'm not going to lie to you. I made a mistake. And I'm going to do everything in my power to get back and get back on the football field. Okay, I'll start with that. Then Art Stapleton came out and said this. Giants co-captain and safety Xavier McKinney suffered a hand injury during an ATV accident during the bye that will keep him sidelined for a few weeks. Turns out it was more than that. I don't think I pulled up the exact quote. It's going to be a minimum of 4 weeks, could be longer than that. It's a broken hand, I believe. According to a post he just made on a verified Twitter account, the post is accurate per source. The clause, ATV riding or other activities deemed as high risk, gives the team the right to eliminate guaranteed money. That doesn't take money away from Xavier McKinney per se. He's one of the best players, and they are not cutting him. Now, if he had a terrible contract, and I think he went on to say that then they may look to, get rid of him. Like Kenny Golladay, for example, this would be an excuse to cut Kenny Golladay. They'd be able to get out of that money. But the fact that Xavier McKinney is a core piece, a bright piece of the future, a guy that the New York Giants are looking to build around, don't expect them to take any money away from him. This is a guy that they probably still look at as a player that they potentially want to see here long-term. They want to see a second contract. They're not going to try to upset him. They're going to try to support him. But is it fair to be somewhat critical? Of course. I mean, for anybody that's completely downplaying this, and I see people giving their opinions, this is no different than stepping out of the shower or getting hurt in a cab ride. I disagree. I'm not saying that the guy went bungee jumping. I'm not saying that the guy, got into a gunfight. But, it's in season. He went on vacation, and he did something that, it's in his contract for a reason. There's a clause in the contract for a reason that he shouldn't be, driving ATVs, because the New York Giants identified that as something that they feel is more dangerous than necessary, especially in season. Had this happen out of season, I don't think anybody would be going up in arms about it. So do I think it's fair to be critical and say to yourself, he's young, he made a mistake, this is hopefully something he can learn from? But was it a mistake? Yes. I think Brian Dable would tell you that. I think Xavier McKinney would tell you that. There's a reason that McKinney got out in front of the media and said, basically, I'm paraphrasing a bit, let me get out in front before Art Stapleton finds out about this, before Jordan Renan finds out about this, before the fans find out about it, because I know it's going to be a bombshell. And let me admit my wrongdoing. Let me admit that I did make a mistake. Yes. Is he human? Absolutely. Is he young? Absolutely. Have I made mistakes when I was young? Absolutely. Have you made mistakes when you were young while watching this? Absolutely. But this guy's a multi-million-dollar athlete, a guy that is a captain of the football team that you expect not to make decisions like this. So do I understand the frustration? Sure. I'm a fan. I'm frustrated. That doesn't mean I'm sour on the player. That doesn't mean that I still don't think very highly of McKinney. I don't feel any less in terms of his character. No, I think this is a scenario where he had a lapse in judgment. It's not near the level of a guy like DeAndre Baker, for example, in terms of what he was accused for. No, but it's something that hurt the football team, and it's unfortunate, and I'm sure McKinney feels really bad about it. And the New York Giants are going to have to find a way to overcome it, and hopefully he's back, within 5 weeks. But I don't think there's anything wrong in having that opinion. I still support the player. I still want him to be a New York Giant for the next 10 to 12 years. I'm just, it's unfortunate, and I'm upset that now he's going to miss time. He's such a critical player of this team, and it's just something that could have been avoided. It's not something that happened on the football field. He didn't have to ride on an ATV. He should have known that based off the fact that it was in his contract. And it's a mistake. That's all there is to it. I'm not going to get into the details. You could speculate. I saw some people speculating, saying that, well, if he was just, friendly, slowly driving on an ATV, he's probably not going to break his hand. That's probably true. I'm sure he was doing something on the ATV that he probably shouldn't have been doing. He was probably having a little bit too much fun. It is what it is. We move on. And the New York Giants have to overcome it. And we'll see if they can. Just a really unfortunate situation. And I'm sure Xavier Mckinney will never do this again. Hopefully it's something he learns from, because I do want him to be a player that's here long term. I do want him to be a player that the New York Giants grow with. Just sad that we're not going to have him here now for at least the next 4 weeks, and it may be even longer than that. Who knows? Could be season ending. I don't think that. I haven't heard that. I'm not saying I anticipate that, but we know it's going to be at least for 4 weeks, being that he was put on I think it was the unrelated football injury list, whatever it is. It's a minimum of 4 weeks. So he's going to miss the Texas game, the Lions game, the Cowboys game, and I think the Washington game at a bare minimum. Best case scenario, he's back for the Philadelphia Eagles first contest, and we're going to need him, especially for that game, going up against those wide receivers. But until then, like I said, expect to see Julian Love have more added responsibility. Expect to see Dane Belton out there. Now we're going to talk about Odell Beckham briefly. The story that came out first, I just wanted to pull up the quote that was a couple of days ago regarding Joe Schoen on the topic. Obviously, he's been a good player. He's a guy we would consider and talk to when he's healthy. I think he did the ACL in February, so not sure where he is physically. Yeah, any player to upgrade the roster, we're going to consider and have conversations with their representative. General Manager Joe Schoen said during the bye week. Got this off GiantsWire.com. He's a good player when I evaluate him. If he's healthy, if a player is healthy and they would help us win football games, we would pursue them if they fit what we're looking for. And I think he later went on to talk about that he's actually been in touch with his representatives. So there's at least a little bit of smoke there, for sure. Then this is what Beckham had to say. Whether it's Buffalo, Green Bay calling the Cowboys, a reunion with the Giants, Beckham said, I want to be able to spill my last, I'm not saying I've only got 3 or 4 years left, but these next 3 or 4 years into a place where I could buy a home. Like, I can call this place home. So that's what Beckham came out and said. So it sounds to me like Beckham's expectations, and maybe he'll be able to get this, maybe he won't, is if he's going to sign, he doesn't want it to be a 1-year signing. He wants this to be a 3 or 4 year signing. And to my question, if I'm Joe Schoen to Beckham, is, well, what kind of money are we talking about here? At the end of the day, you are 30 years old. You're coming off of major surgery. An ACL injury is nothing to joke about. And I don't know if I necessarily feel super, comfortable giving you a high contract at the age of 30. I don't know if you fit my timeline. Now, of course, if Odell Beckham's willing to sign for an affordable contract because he wants to come back to New York and finish his career here, would I be willing to potentially go 3 or 4 years? I suppose. But my answer to Beckham, more than likely, and I know fans don't want to hear this because he's ultra popular, and I do think he could help this year's football team. If you're Joe Schoen, if he wants, a decent salary at a 3 to 4 year commitment, I don't know how in the world you would ever be able to do that. My thought process was with Beckham, he's probably going to have to come back on a 1-year deal, and he still may. That may be what he wants. That doesn't mean that's what he's going to be offered from teams around the league. He's coming off an ACL tear. Usually you have to prove yourself before you get a lengthy contract, especially at the age that he's at. But maybe because teams are desperate enough out there, if there's enough callers, if there's a team that's desperate enough to add him as a wide receiver, maybe a team's willing to do that. Do I think the New York Giants should do that? No. Absolutely not. Do I think they should give him a 3 or 4 year commitment? Am I against giving him a 1 year commitment, seeing how he plays, and if he plays well, and you're confident that he could stay healthy and play at a relatively high level, maybe talking a 2 or 3 year deal after that? Sure, but I'm not giving him a 3 year deal off the ACL tear. Absolutely not. Maybe another team will be willing to do that, but that's my opinion on the matter. Maybe you disagree with that. I just think it's too risky, and I don't think the New York Giants are in a place to be given a 3 or 4 year contract to Odell Beckham at the age of 30, coming off the injury that he is. I would sooner rather give a younger receiver a 3 or 4 year deal, a guy that I don't have to worry about the injuries quite as much, a guy that is still, improving as a football player, a guy that has not quite reached his heights, whether that be trading up in the draft, whether that be signing a free agent at the age of 24 or 25. So that's my thought process on it. Would I be against Beckham coming back? No. But under the stipulations that he's brought, the 3 or 4 year commitment, no. And I don't think Joe Shane would do that either. I think Joe Shane would kick the tires. He would see the interest, but I don't see him giving a 3 or 4 year commitment to Odell Beckham. Maybe they give him a 2 year deal. I don't know. But in the end, do I think he'll be a Giant? No. Do I think it's more possible than it was, say, a month ago? Yes, because there's obviously at least some mutual interest on both ends. In the end, I think Beckham's going to go to the team, like he said, that gives him the best financial commitment, a team that he feels like is willing to commit 3 or 4 years if a team is willing to do that. Do I think the Giants will be one of those teams? No, I just don't. We're still trying to clean up our cap space. We're still trying to develop our new young core. And I think Shane has proven that he's the type of general manager that is not going to overspend. He's not going to think too much in the moment. He's going to think about the best future for this football team in terms of 3 or 4 years down the line. And I would guess, regardless how great he is and how great of a New York Giant he was and how talented he is, Odell Beckham is not going to be valued as high as a younger receiver that the New York Giants may be able to bring in on a similar price point. But we'll have to wait and see. Do I think Beckham will be a Giant? No. Is it at least slightly possible? Sure. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.